Hi everyone, welcome to the next video in the integration series where we are going to see the integration between UiPath apps, UiPath Orchestrator and the UiPath data services. I would suggest you to watch the first video in the integration series, then this video would make more sense. So let's see the agenda for this video. In this video we are going to create entities in the data services. Next we are going to enable the data services in the tenant. After that we are going to see how we can connect the studio to the data services, and at the end what we are going to do is whatever data we extract from the web application, we are going to insert the entire bulk of data in the data services in one go. So let's see. To start with data services, we first come to cloud.uipath.com and navigate to the tenant. So why do we want the data services? Because we want to have a persistent storage of the data which we have scraped in the previous video, and we don't want to store in an Excel or any shared location. To start with the data services, I come to admin and this is my tenant. So data service is not enabled. I come here, settings, okay, my bad. So I go here, edit the services for the tenant and I enable the data services, hit save, and now you can see data services enabled on my tenant. So I go here and click on the data services, getting things ready. Let's wait for the data services to fire up. Okay, and we are in the data services wizard. Okay, so in the data services we have to create the two entities which we are going to use as the persistent storage. I have dedicatedly created a full playlist on the data services where I am defining each and every action of the data services, that what is entity, what is field, what is the description, what are the choice set, and all those stuffs are, I have a dedicated playlist in my channel. Please do visit that. So as of now in this video we are just going to create the entity which are to be used by the project. Okay, so I go here and create new entity. So I will create an entity called source rates. Okay, I'll provide the description as source rate. So this would be the data service where the first set of data will be stored. So if I go in this guy, so these are the 1 2 3 4 5 user defined fields. I go here, create new field, I'll just name it to currency. It would be of type text, required, save. Next I require one more field, date. Okay, I'll make it to the type date and I change it to date time. I don't want the timestamp. Okay, and save. Next I want a rate and this would be of type text, required, save, create new field, and one would be the reverse rate, would be of the type text, required, and save. Okay, so my creation of the data service has been completed. So I have not followed all the best practices and all because we have to provide the description and everything, and this is not a detailed video on the data services. So we are just creating the entities for the integration purpose. So one is the source, it is created. Next step is I have to create one more entity where I would store the destination rates. So I would create one more entity and I'll call it destination rates. Okay, so why we are creating two entities? Because we have two sets of data. So that we have seen in the previous video, the data was extracted twice, right? So first set of data will go in the source entity and the second set of data will go in the destination entity. Okay, so I will create new fields. So the field names were date, if I remember it correctly. So it is of date time, required, save. Next was currency. Okay, text, it is required. Then I want the rate, required, save, and then something called reverse rate, required, and save. Okay, so my creation of two entities is completed. There are 9 fields and 0 records in the entity. So now we have completed the data services entity. The next thing we have to do is we have to connect the data service entity to the UiPath Studio, and whenever the data is scraped from the website we have to fill these two entities. Okay, let's see that. We navigate to UiPath Studio. If I just open the main, so this is the project which we have created in the last video, and at the end of the video we were just printing the data in an right line, right? So now in this video what we are going to do is we are going to store the data extracted from here to the persistent storage of the data services we have just created. So for that, first thing we have to do is whenever we enable the data services in the tenant, first thing we have to verify that whether we are connected to the same tenant or not. So I go back to the home. Okay, and we have enabled the data services on this tenant personal space default. Okay, so I go back to UiPath Orchestrator, and if you'll just click here, okay, I'll just hover over it. 1 second. Okay, and we are connected to the personal space default, so that means that we are connected to the correct tenant. Otherwise you won't see this manage entities at the top. Okay, so in case you are not seeing it, so just restart the restart the UiPath Studio, and this button should be visible. So I click on manage entities and both the entities are visible. The plus button indicates that we are going to add these guys to the project. So I have a detailed video on the adding, removing and describing each and every step in the detail, so you can click on the I button at the top and see that video of the data services. I'll provide the link in the description as well. Okay, so I go here and save. So what I am doing here is I am installing the data services entities to my UiPath Studio. So I am making a connection between the data services and the UiPath Studio. As you can see, we have now got a message that you can now import entities and you have to install this package. Okay, so I go ahead and install the package. So this is the package which is required to connect to the data services activities. So now, as of now, I would not have the data service activities in my activity pane, so I can go here and install, save. Okay, so now what will happen is I will get all the entities, sorry, all the activities which are required to communicate with the data services. Okay, so dependencies are completed. Let's go to the project, and the dependencies is available here for the data services. And if I go to the entities, you will see we have mapped both of the entities here, destination rates and the source rate. Okay, we are good here. So the next thing we have to do is we have to now, whenever we scrape the data, we have to store the data in the persistent storage on this, which is this data service. Okay, so now before storing the data, let's open the workflow. So this is for the source, and we are getting a data table, but we don't know what in which format the data is coming. When I say format, we are not sure that which column of the data table is consisting which data. So for that, what we can do is we can put a breakpoint here, and we'll try to execute this flow in the debug mode. So what will happen in when the debugger is stopped, we can peek into the data table in the debug mode and see the columns position. So I go to main. Okay, and I go here and I'll select debug the file. So before that, okay, this is open, so any which ways we have written a code to close this guy also. So we'll go here and debug the file. Okay, so I is closed. It has again opened the I with the specified website. Clicked on home, went to historical rates. Now it will put the date which we have specified. Hit on go, scrape the data, and now it should hit the debugger. So let's go back to the UiPath Studio. Okay, and the debugger is hit here. So the data table was the extract data table, so we can go to the locals. So I click on this pencil icon, and this is the data. I'll just copy it to clipboard and I go to notepad plus plus, save this one. Okay, so this is the form of data which we are getting. Okay, so I can stop the debugging. Just remove this debugger from here. Okay, let's go back to the data, and the data which we are getting is, first we are getting the currency name, next we are getting the actual rate, and next we are getting the reverse rate. Okay, so if I go back to the browser, so this is the first rate and this is the reverse rate. Okay, so the data was getting scraped from here. Okay, fair enough. So this is what we want, so I'll just remove the extra data from here, and for the simplicity what we'll do is I will just specify here. So this would be our row 0, next this would be row 0, this would be row of 1, and this guy will be row of 2. Okay, so we are getting 3 data, row of 0, row of 1 and row of 2, and the data is in this format. Okay, let's go back to UiPath Studio. So the next thing is we have scraped the data from the website, and now instead of putting and writing the data table count, we want to store the data in and data services. So for that, I'll just delete this guy and I'll go to the activities, and we have imported the data services, right? So we have imported the dependencies. So if I go to the project, we should have something called a data services wizard somewhere here. So data services is now available, and what we wanted to do is we want to create an entity record. Okay, so we drag and drop this activity here. Okay, so we have drag and drop the create entity record here. So the next thing we have to do is which entity we want to work upon. So if I just go here in the project pane, so I have the entities, the source and the destination. Let's do it for the source. So I go here and select the browse for the type, and I'll select type here as source source and source rates. Okay, and now the input record. So what we can do is we can hit Control K, and I type here input record, and it will create a variable. In terms of the output record, we can always specify the again the same variable here. So I'll go here and type the input record. Now to know more about this activity and why we are doing this, so I have a detailed video again for creating a mass upload and a single insert in the entity records and the data services. So you can click on the I button and watch this video. Okay, so this is done. So our variable is created, input record. Next we wanted to do is we want to extract the data and put the data in the data this entity record, right? So entity record, but now if you'll see here, we are having a lot of record, and this is just to insert a single record. So how we can insert multiple records? So for that, what I'll do is I'll take a for each row now, because we are dealing with data table, and we'll type here extract data table now. So for each row in the extract data table, each and every record will just insert here. Okay, so how do we proceed that one? So for first thing is this input record is of type. Okay, so this input record is of type source rate. I'll just remove this one. Okay, is of type source rate. So first thing is we have to initialize this one. To initialize that one, what we have to do is we have to take an assign activity, otherwise we'll get a null reference exception. So we'll write here input record, and we will type here new. What is the name of the project? Currency mapping dot source rate. Okay, so we have initialized this entity. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is for each and every row we will create a single record, and then we will pass that record to this entity. So for that, what I'll do is I'll take a multiple assign. Okay, I'll drag and drop here multiple assign, and this is the record which will be, so this is the instance of the entity record. So what I can do here is I will type here input record, and when I hit dot, you will see I am getting all the properties. Okay, so what are all the properties here? So now if I go back to my notepad, so row of 0 is having the currency information. Okay, so I can type here input record dot currency, and where would I get the currency from? This would be in this row, and that would be row of first element dot toString. Okay, add. Next we want to do is again input record dot current rate. So I'll just write rate, and that would be again row of 1 dot toString. Next, the third thing is input record dot reverse rate. Okay, and that was the third item, row of 2 dot toString. Okay, and we have, let's go to the entity source rate. So we have this for rate, reverse rate, currency, and the date. We wanted to store the current date which is being queried for in the portal, right? So we go here, I'll add one more here, and I will type input record dot date, is for the date what we are querying the portal, and that is available as an input argument in date. Okay, so I can pass here in date. Okay, so with an exception which says for which item. Okay, this is good. To string put record dot date is also fine. And why this error? Okay, just do one thing. Put record dot date is in of date, and this is of type string, and this is of type date time. That's why. So we have to do is we have to convert this to date time. So I'll type here convert dot to date and this variable. Okay, and this is done. I'll save thing. So let's see what we are doing here. So for each and every row in the extract data table, we are creating a record, and then for that record we are initializing each and every element of the record, each and every, I would say each and every attribute of the record with the value from the data table. So let's do by the example. So whenever this row is coming, so this will go in the currency, this will go in the current rate, this will go in the reverse rate. Okay, and next what we have to do is we have to create this entity record here. Okay, so for each row is completed, create entity record, and let's just test this flow. So to test this flow, what we'll do is we'll just put a, okay, I'll put a right line here. I'll type done. Okay, save everything, go back to the main and extract data. Okay, let me just disable this one for a second. Okay, and we are passing the date as source date, and whenever I run this flow, what should happen is it should kill the process, open the browser, extract the data, and for each and every data, the data should be now pushed to the entity. Okay, and we should get a message saying done. Okay, let's go to the main and run the file. Okay, now it will type the date. Go. Now it should extract the data, and once the extraction is completed, it should fill the data service entity with this data. Okay, let us wait for the execution. Okay, let's go back to the output. It says done, and I can verify with the data service count. I can go to the entities. So as of now I can see there are 53 records. So that means this process is working to insert the source data. So now we have made the changes here. So what I can do is I can just make the changes here also. So okay, so now there is a small problem in the workflow. So if we do make changes for the destination rate, the changes would impact the extract data also, because we have created the same workflow. Okay, so how can we fix that? Just delete this one. Okay, we'll go to project, we'll copy this extract data. Okay, and we'll again go here and paste it here with a copy, and then I will rename it to extract data for underscore destination. Okay, and then we can simply drag and drop it here. Okay, so now what will happen is whenever I make the changes in this workflow, this won't get impacted. Okay, so let's import argument, and the date now would be the destination date. Okay, hit OK, open the workflow. Now the same changes we will do for the destination as well. So this remains as it is. Now the only change would be this here. So whenever we are creating the entity record, now instead of putting the records in the source state, what we'll do is we'll change it to the destination rates. Okay, that is the only change. Now if you'll see, we have started encountering an error which says that input record is of different type, because if you'll go to the variables, the input record is of type source rate. Okay, and we have to just change it to the destination rates. That's it. And here also we'll go to properties, and now this would be dot destination rates. Hit OK, save. We'll just remove this done from here, save everything. The extract data also, we'll just remove this from here, save everything, go to the main, save everything. And now let's go to the entities. Let's clear this data from here. Okay, so I can go to the data, I'll select everything, I will select the 50 records, select everything, and let's clean the data, right? We'll delete everything. Okay, I'll just delete this 3 records as well. Let's keep it clean. Okay, go to the entities. So now both the entities are having 0 records. And now if I go back to UiPath Studio, if I execute this process, what should happen is first it should invoke the workflow for the source date, and then it should invoke the same workflow for the destination date. So if I go to the arguments, both are hard coded to 11th and 10th. Okay, so let's save this. Let's go to the run menu and run. Okay, so I has been closed. Then it has again reopened the URL. Now it should type on the historical lookups, type the date, select the go button, and now it will extract the data for the source state. And once the data extraction is completed, it will fill the first entity, that is the source entity of the data services. And once the entity is filled, it will again invoke the same workflow for the destination date. Okay, let's wait for the execution to get completed. Okay, so it has now opened the IE again. Now it is again extracting the data for the destination date. It clicked on the historical lookup. Now it will put the destination date. Hit on the go. Now it will again extract the data, and once the extraction is completed, it will fill up the data services entity for the destination record. Let's wait for the execution to get completed. Okay, so the process is executed completely. Okay, let's go back to the data services, and if I just refresh it, you will see there are 53 records in both the source and the destination. So we can just verify that if I go to the source date and I go to the data, so this is the source date 12/10. We can see the create time updated by an updated time being updated to the date timestamp. So these are all done by the UiPath data services. So we call them system defined fields and pre-populated by the data services, and these are user defined field. So in case you want to know more about the user defined and the system defined fields, just click on the I button and it will navigate to your detailed video which I have made on the differences between a system and the user defined fields. Okay, so as part as this video is concerned, I'll just wrap up this video here. So in this video we have seen that how we have invoked the two workflow for the source and destination, and we were successfully able to fill both the entities of source and the destination rates. And in the next part of the video, what we'll see is we'll connect this automation to the orchestrator, and we'll just update this code to give us the final output result that again will be displayed by the UiPath apps. So stay tuned. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and happy automation.